How's it going, guys? It's Cole from See-Through Panel, showing off my January 2023 comic and manga haul. Big order for my monthly shipment this month, and I also ended up buying a lot of stuff spur of the moment just at the bookstore or on Amazon, things like that. So a lot of stuff that I went out and purchased outside of my monthly shipment. First of those being the thing I'm most excited about this month, PTSD Radio Volume 1, published by Kodansha, written and drawn by Masaki Nakayama. And first of all, just physically, this paperback is really, really nicely put together. A lot of like raised lettering, spot varnish, a lot of texture. This eyebrow type thing here is textured. This is textured to feel like porous almost. The back, this logo has texture. All this is raised and has spot varnish all over it. Pretty crazy production quality. And the series itself is a manga horror anthology, which I will admit to reading about 2/3 of it online before, or digitally, before actually buying the books. So it is an anthology series, but it is drawn and written by the same person for every story. But there is a loose set of threads running through them. So this is volumes 1 and 2 of 6. And as you can see, there's radio frequencies here for our table of contents, kind of with the radio theme. We can see there 89.27, 89.28. Those are continuations of the same story. And that would be easy to miss if you were just going in completely unaware. And that's totally fine because it'll make sense to you in the end. But just a bunch of really short vignettes, some of them longer than others, but most of them just 3 or 4 pages. The longer ones, maybe 10 pages. It's been a minute since I read it digitally, but I remember it being pretty horrifying, and there's some pages that make me really just want to turn my head, like this one I'm about to show. It's not necessarily gross out, it's just something about it bothers me. When I would digitally turn the page on my phone, just seeing this page, I couldn't look at it for long. It just makes me uncomfortable, and it's just so, the anatomy is so stretched and strange, and it's very ghoulish. But yeah, the story's really, really great, at least from what I can glean off what I've seen so far. I have read all of this. They're publishing it in sets of 2, so this is 1 and 2. I've read up to 3 and 4, so once we get to the 3rd and final book, I will be reading new stuff. But I will be covering this on the channel at some point, because it's really, really excellent horror manga, which is some of my favorite of the genre. Is the horror genre, that is done best in manga. Looking at Junji Ito especially. Next up, published by Albatross. Did you hear what Eddie Gein done? Which is hard for me to say. Written by Harold Schechter and drawn by Eric Powell. I have kind of always wanted to have an Eric Powell book in my library, but I'm not big on the Goon. And some of the other stuff he's done, I enjoyed the art, but I just wasn't super big on the stories. I guess also Eric Powell has a writing credit. My bad. But this is the story of a, not sure he's actually a serial killer, but he dug up graves and made furniture out of human skin. He was just an overall bad guy, Ed Gein. And this is the story of his life, front to bottom, from what I can glean, his entire childhood, everything that's well known. This is very well researched from what I could read about it, and just shows his upbringing and what maybe made him the way he was. And then through all of his very, very gross actions that led up to his capture. And Eric Powell is really, really interesting as an illustrator for me, because his style isn't something I think I would normally be into, but the boldness of the ink and the outlines and all of his kind of light shading that he does on characters, like here, very washy with the shading, that really catches my eye, and I think it's makes for good storytelling, considering he knows how to use a layout as well, how to structure a story to make visual sense. I don't want to flip too much through this because I don't want to get spoilery, but super excited for that too. I don't know if I'd categorize it as horror, but it definitely is in the realm of horror. After that, I did get Berserk 12, the deluxe editions from Dark Horse, Volume 12, of course, written and drawn by Kentaro Miura, and I don't show this one on the haul videos because it's Berserk and there's a lot of nudity and gore and stuff that YouTube does not like, but I really need to get caught up. I think I'm only through, the 6th volume of the special editions. Up next, a little oversized, doesn't fit into frame perfectly. Sleeper, written by Ed Brubaker, drawn by Sean Phillips. The Omnibus by DC Black Label, or just Vertigo, as it was. Originally Wildstorm, I believe. Minimal design on the front, just debossed. Is that what they call it? Embossed, debossed? Not sure, but very more recent. This looks like more recent Phillips to me, where he's kind of like more painterly style for his covers and pinups and things. But this is the story of, from what I know, I have yet to read this one. I'm going in completely dry just because I like these two creators so very much. It is a world with superheroes, I think the Wildstorm universe, if you guys are familiar with that. And we have a special agent who is going onto the enemy, kind of like the villains team, and he is a double agent, and things get messy from there. Very hard-boiled, classic Ed Brubaker stuff. Oh, the first story is called Point Blank, and the style gets a lot different. You can see that the background color of the pages changes partway through. You also can see my pages are kind of wavy because of my humidity in my house right now, but that works itself out eventually. But yeah, just another Brubaker and Phillips story, this time leaning a bit more superhero-y, but very much keeping to their normal style and tone, which is very dark, very crime-oriented, gritty, just with a little bit more, leaning a little bit more into the DC side of things. I should say there's probably quite a few other artists credited in here, I think. Additional artists, right down here. Janet Gale, Tony Avina. Oh, there's a bunch of... Oh, these are colorists, I'm sorry. Jim Lee and Colin Wilson are the additional artists. Jim Lee being the big name, but not even Jim Lee makes it to the cover outside of Phillips, which is crazy to me. But yeah, super excited to read that. It's almost like vintage Brubaker and Phillips now. It's like the start. Not the very start, I don't believe, but pretty close to the start. After that, we've got Norse Mythology Volume 3. I actually haven't finished... No, I actually just recently finished Volume 2 of the hardcovers. I'm really excited to get into Volume 3. Obviously an adaptation of a book by Neil Gaiman, adapted by P. Craig Russell. Inside... Oh, David Rubin. We have David Rubin, Colleen Doran, Galen Showman, Laverne Kinzierski, P. Craig Russell doing art himself, and then P. Craig Russell... Oh, that's okay, he does Ragnarok, P. Craig Russell does, and he does the cover. And I'm really excited because they keep hinting at Ragnarok in the other books, and I just really want to get to the climax of this story. They're self-contained short stories about Norse mythology with different artists and a very sarcastic tone from Neil Gaiman, but they usually at the end of the story, or the big monumental stories, they'll hint at Ragnarok and the coming of Ragnarok and what that means for everyone involved. And if you know anything about Norse mythology, it's going to get crazy towards the end here, but David Rubin just showing up a lot of artists in the industry, but pretty much every artist in this book is able to be on his level as well. Obviously Russell's amazing. Colleen Doran can do no wrong for me. The other artists in here, art by Galen Showman. I'm not actually sure. I haven't ever seen them before. Okay. This artist was used in Volume 2, I'm pretty sure, unless they're doing a very good imitation of the artist from Volume 2, but I believe so. It was a Loki-oriented story, and I remember this kind of style. There is kind of a style that the book takes besides David Rubin, because he doesn't care about matching anyone's style. But this is kind of the general style of Norse mythology's stories and their art, is this kind of aesthetic. But it works really well for me, and I'm really excited to have the wrapped up edition of the story so I can read it all in one go. After that, let's do Dandadan Volume 2. I've been waiting for this one for a long time. Going for... It starts right off with exactly where we left Volume 1 of these guys running away from this gigantic crab. I'm getting ahead of myself. This is published by Viz and created by Yukinobu Tatsu, who so far I believe to be a bit of a genius with his storytelling and his art. His art is just immaculate. The best way to describe this story for me is I have a video on the first volume where I talk about how much I enjoyed it, but it is a blending of science fiction and the supernatural, ghost stories mixing with aliens, gods mixing with UFOs, just some crazy stuff with some crazy art. Classically manga style in a way, but also I think even more hyper detailed than I would be expecting from a manga. And just the action is so kinetic, like this here, all these scratchy motion lines creating the foot there. Everything just kind of blends into a... It seems like it would be throwing too much different stuff into a pot and then hoping it mixes, but it really does kind of all blend together in a really interesting way with the ghosts and the aliens interacting and the kind of intersection of what that all is about, what it really stands for these two characters. It also seems to have an increasing cast of characters that we're growing, and I'm excited to see where that goes in volumes 2 and 3. I just, prior to making this video, completed my February order, and volume 3 is on that, so I'm excited to get that. After that, It's Lonely at the Center of the Earth, an autobiographic novel, very clever, I think, doing that, by Zoe Thorogood, published by Image, which is a come-up for any indie creator, I think. This is as it says, an autobiographic novel in all the senses of those words, and it details, from what I can tell, a hard time in Zoe Thorogood's life. I think sometime during the pandemic, probably fairly recently, where things just weren't going right, and she seems to be pretty conflicted, but continues to create for the sake of creating. I believe it actually says that on the back. Intimate and meta-narrative look into the life of a selfish artist who must create for her own survival. And the reason I got this book is it was being very well reviewed everywhere on the internet. I didn't really care all that much. I was super happy that it was out there, but I'm not big on autobiographic stuff or non-fiction in general. I'm just more of a fiction guy. Then I looked at the art and I saw all these disparate styles that Zoe's using, and the work with the color I think is amazing. Every page I show you will be a little different. And just, yeah, the array of styles that she shows off here I think is very, very, there's a very high skill for such a young artist. She really knows what she's doing. In terms of the story, I couldn't tell you, but I just know that everyone everywhere just loved this. I'm sure I will love it as well. But the actual, like this guy, I'm just curious what this is. If this is like doubt or sadness or something personified, because it seems to be pretty present in much of the story. And yeah. This is kind of like a pun thing going on here, I think, too. But I'm not sure. I couldn't tell you all of it yet. But just some of the stuff that's going on here is beautifully crazy. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a meta look at that conversation. Yeah, so very excited to have that. And I think we're moving on to the final book, which is one I ordered off the shipment, Afro Samurai by Takashi Okazaki, Volume 1. I believe this is actually the first 2 volumes, just like PTSD Radio. This is published by Titan, the manga imprint of Titan, I believe. And something I've always really wanted to get into. My brother was huge on the movies, the original video animations, and I just never really got into it. I think I've seen one of them. I believe there is 2, if I remember right. But yeah, I've seen one of them, and I thought it was really stylish and really badass, but I wasn't big on the whole thing. This is a manga in a future Japan where everything is about violence. Everyone wants to be the number one, and there it is right there. Long time no see, number one. Our main character's father was the number one, is killed by the number 2, who then becomes the number 1, and it is now his goal in life to get the number 1 headband, which is kind of the symbol. They say it makes you have the power of a god if you have the number 1 headband, and the headbands are just insanely long. They go all over the place, like kind of like superhero capes, kind of a similar aesthetic. But yeah, it looks. I love the use of red too. It's so messy and like viscous looking. Like it looks like it was actually put on the page, not in the art. I think it's really nice splatter effect, and also really surprising to get a dash of color with manga, so I'm never gonna complain about that. But yeah, a lot of stuff I'm really excited about. Glad I'm finally starting to get some manga pretty regularly, but I'll have to read all this stuff soon for the channel because I want to talk about pretty much all of it. I couldn't, yeah, there's not a book here I'm not excited about, obviously, or I wouldn't have bought them, but can't even fit Sleeper or Berserk in here in the image. But yeah, let me know if you guys got any of these or if I missed anything in January. This video went a little long, but I ended up talking about the books a little longer than I anticipated. But really appreciate you guys watching. Thanks. Peace.